Hey guys, it's Fancy and welcome to my YouTube channel called Simply Fancy, where I talk about simply fancy little things. In today's video, I'm gonna tell you guys all about why I stopped teaching, starting from the beginning. When I was 12 years old, I was a student at a school called Barbizon Modeling and Acting School, where they trained kids how to become models, actors, anything basically in the creative space. And back then it was such a big deal to go to such a school like that. It was like prestige. It was very expensive now that I think about it as an adult today. I think I paid, well not I, my parents paid about like $4,000 to $5,000 for the program. Quite costly, but it was such a good experience and I was really grateful for that opportunity. But what I learned so much about the school was that I didn't only love modeling, I actually loved like the teaching process. Just seeing how my teacher was so creative and just really giving us like the space to be like ourselves. I was like, you know, one day like I might teach as well, right? So after graduating from the program and then finishing high school, I got the opportunity to become a teacher at the very school that I trained at. So I was like, okay, like this is so cool. So when I started teaching at the school, I was actually really nervous because there were some students who were older than me, but I had to really pretend that I was older than them so they would actually respect me. So I'm like, hi, my name is Ms.Fancy, but yes, I'm your big teacher. I'm your big auntie, yes. Like I just had to really have them put respect on my name because I was so young, but I was their teacher. So that was actually really interesting. And the good thing about the fact that I was teaching modeling and acting was that myself, I was doing acting and modeling, so it helped that I was getting real life experience in the industry and basically applying it back to students every time I would go teach them. And I think the parents really loved the fact that I was able to give like fresh information because I was pursuing my career as well as teaching as I went, and I thought that was like my unique ability as a teacher. So what I would teach in the classes were runway modeling, print modeling, commercials. I also taught beauty, skincare, and nutrition. So these were things that were very important for a model to be very aware of. And that's what I taught in the classes. And the schools were very beautiful. We had a full runway room, we had a full makeup room. You know, like I really felt like it was such a good experience for me as a child attending that school. So to be able to be a teacher, I was able to like, you know, fill in the gaps of things I would have wanted to learn more and apply that to these students. One of the classes that I loved teaching a lot during the modeling school was nutrition. I feel like a lot of times people forget that in the industry of modeling and acting, a lot of kids develop eating disorders and eating issues and really having this unrealistic expectation to look a certain way. So when it came down to nutrition classes, I would talk to kids basically about like how they feel about themselves. Are they eating well? Are they drinking enough water? And myself as a model, like I struggle with these things. It's not easy to have to kind of constantly constrict yourself to be a certain size. And this was back then. Today, like I love that this generation right now, everybody's being themselves, everybody has their own different size or height. But back then it was a lot more strict, and I was dealing with kids who were very like critical of themselves. So I really made sure doing nutrition classes and self-esteem classes that we really focused on building their self-confidence to be themselves so they don't end up having some issues that affect them physically and their health later down the line. When I was a student, there wasn't a business aspect taught to me, and I thought that's something that was missing. I'm a girl that just loves business, so I felt like I also want to teach the kids that there's more to just taking a picture and being on a magazine. Like I really wanted them to understand what like having an agent means, like what it's like to take 20% of a check, like what a Coogan account is, how to save for retirement. So even though these kids were like 10, 12 years old sometimes, and I'm talking about business stuff, and sometimes you're like, what? I'm like, I don't care. I'm just gonna tell them, and I know eventually they're going to like remember it and it's gonna click in their head someday. And also the reason I taught the business side of the industry to the kids is because I wanted them to take that information and give it to their parents. So I wanted the parents to be informed about how the business side works, so they're not caught up only in the creative, not realizing that this is actually a business. At the last class that we would have with the students, I would teach them about basically applying everything you learned and just really going for your dreams. You know, at the end of the day, this was a school. Our school was to train kids on how to prepare themselves to be models and actors and be successful in that. But a lot of times the reason our school got a bad rep was because people had the expectation that because you're taking these acting and modeling classes, that it immediately means you're gonna be a star. And that's not how it works. And I really feel like that was the only hindrance to Barbizon, was that the expectation was so high that when the student would graduate and not get an agent or not get commercials, the parents would be upset and be like, oh, this is a scam. You said she was gonna be a star. It's like, you know, the person taking you into the school does believe you're gonna be a star, but that also depends on the effort the child puts in, and it depends on, you know, how available the parent can be for the child to go to all these auditions. Being a child model and actor, whew, it's a lot of work, and you need a lot of support. Like, you need parents who are gonna be so dedicated to this. So it was hard to kind of like see parents or people talk badly about the school because their child, for example, maybe didn't go as far as they wanted them to. And yeah, there's always no one to blame. At the end of the day, being in the entertainment industry, there's a lot of talent, but there's a lot of luck, there's a lot of blessing, there's a lot of random factors that can make someone a star. So it's not a very technical career where you're studying science and you want to be a scientist, and there's like, you need your master's, you do this test, like there's all these, you know, different things you have to do to get to your career peak. But when it comes to being an entertainer, you can do all the right things and never make it. I think it's cool when your teacher really is in the field of what you're trying to learn, because they're not teaching you from a textbook, they're teaching you from experience. So that's why I just really loved my job. I really loved teaching. The kids were so cute. I love kids so much. Like, if it were up to me, I would have 6 babies right now. Like, I love children. So, you know, their minds are so creative. They're so innocent. They're so like, Ms.Fancy, Ms.Fancy, Ms.Fancy. I'm like, look at these little voices. So what went wrong? Let's talk about what started going wrong with me and my teaching career. So in 2020, the global pandemic happened, and unfortunately we had to close down the school physically for safety reasons. But we didn't close down the company because we ended up teaching online. So I was like, oh my God, I'm like teaching on the internet. So it was strange because I'm so used to teaching in person. All the kids were playing games, we're just being like really, really free. And then now I'm just at home like this with like a computer screen with like all these children in squares at home. And I was like, hi guys, like welcome. Let's start working on our modeling. And it was like, how am I gonna teach them how to model from home? Like, it was so strange, but I really did not want the school to not succeed. So I eventually developed a curriculum with the school to teach acting and modeling on Zoom, and it was going well. I would say teaching on Zoom wasn't so bad, because the one thing I noticed is that kids in person can be really distracted, and they sometimes play with other students, and sometimes they're like, yeah, right? But on Zoom, it was like so focused. All this like, you know, connecting and having fun, to teaching on Zoom on the internet, to being back in person, but now we're wearing masks and nobody wants to touch each other. Nobody wants to, like, if somebody coughs, everyone's like, oh, virus! Like, you know, like I was like, no, don't yell that. So, you know, because kids can be very blunt. They'll be like, I think she has the virus. I'm like, shh, it's just a sneeze, honey. Ah, Lord. So it was really strange. Eventually, and unfortunately, my boss pulled me aside one day, and I just had this feeling. I was like, I don't know. I don't think this is it? She's like, yeah. I was like, are we? She's like, yeah, we're closing down. And I was like, oh, my heart sank, because she's not just my boss, she is like a mentor to me, and she has known me since I was 12 years old in that particular school. So it was like devastating, but I understood. It was getting harder and harder to bring new students in, because it was becoming a scary time for people to want to be in person. And also, like, at the end of the day, what we're teaching is very extracurricular. It's not like we're teaching math and science, and a lot of families were dealing with, like, you know, financial reasons why spending $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 on a child to learn how to model wasn't essential as much as putting food on the table. But yeah, it was really sad to think that that part of my life was over as far as teaching at that particular school. It was such a life change for me, and I didn't want to let it go. So I decided to start my own teaching business, which I called the Fancy Kids. Now, that's a whole nother story, but I can make it really short because it was actually a short-lived business. I can laugh now because I learned as an entrepreneur, not everything is gonna succeed, but at least if you try, that's all you can do. So I started the Fancy Kids in 2021. So a few months after I stopped teaching at Barbizon in person, I was like, you know what? I'll start my own business. The reason I stopped the Fancy Kids because, you know, I felt like my journey as a teacher, I only wanted to focus on teaching, and to have a teaching business, like to actually own the company where I had to now acquire the clients, I had to go do some marketing and try to get parents to come to my school. I felt like that wasn't something I was that passionate about. I genuinely was not passionate about looking for clients to teach and looking for students. I just really liked the idea of just going and teaching. And that's just me being honest. My passion for jewelry and my passion for my e-commerce store, that is like a natural thing for me. So I love marketing that. I love doing everything Zodiac related. And that's how it's been able to be like sustainable. That's why they always say you have to love what you do if you want to see it succeed. And I loved teaching, but I did not like the business side. So even though I did have a few clients at the Fancy Kids, I taught a few students, I taught from my house, I taught online, I taught some people in LA and Canada. Like, I did get clients, I did start it, but it just was not bringing in enough money for the effort that it was like being invested. And I just decided, you know what, it's time to let it go, and it's okay. Like, you can't force something, right? So I just said, maybe one day I will get back to it. Maybe one day when I'm like 50 years old and I just feel like I'm retired, I want to just open up a school, I'll do it. But right now in my life, in my career and what I'm doing, I just thought it was just not the best thing for me to continue. So it's really sad. You never want to see something that you built from scratch fail, right? But you know, life is trial and error, and sometimes you have to fail to understand what you don't want, and you focus on the things that you do want. I appreciate the students that did take my courses. I love all the students I've taught over the years, thousands of kids, and I'm grateful for this opportunity. Like, I'm a very long-term person, so it really was hard for me to let go. But this is a new chapter in my life, and I have all the memories and the cute photos to remember this experience. And thank you guys so much for watching my video. Please make sure you subscribe to watch the next one, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.
I'm so fancy.